Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to the 27th module in the series Marketing Management, a VUCA perspective. We are as usual discussing fundamentals and I am your friend and tour guide Siddhi Prad Bhattacharya. We have been discussing marketing models for the last couple of discussions and we will conclude that particular segment in this conversation. In the words of Tony Robbins, the success coach world renowned, success is not something you achieve, conquer or climb or complete. Success is a process, it's a way of life. So in order to succeed in marketing, we have to ensure that the models we bring in, the processes that we follow and the steps that we take in order to achieve the repeated success in all our marketing activities forms the cornerstone of what we are about to do in our marketing careers. There are models to measure viability of the business, how it works, how it continues to produce success in its endeavors, and this is what we'll look at again today. We'll look at how industries evolve and underscore the need for relevant models, and we'll map corporate success through models in a standardization approach so that we can repeat the efficiencies that we've created. In this light, in the third segment of this complete series of understanding models, we come to a variety of understandings here. In today's competitive landscape, businesses thrive by delivering value to their customers while ensuring sustainable profitability. The journey from inputs to outputs is not just about production, but also about optimizing every step to enhance customer satisfaction and ensure that the brand and the organization always maintains a competitive edge. We have discussed the SWOT analysis prior to this and also SMART and PESTLE. We are going to talk about Michael Porter's value chain analysis framework today, which offers a structured approach to identifying and improving activities that add value across the business process in its entirety. By analyzing both primary activities such as operations and marketing and supporting activities like technology and procurement, organizations can uncover opportunities to handle efficiency and customer experience. When we combine this with what we've learned before, the tools like SWOT analysis and strategic market planning, the VCA model helps businesses align their strengths with market needs. This segment explores how organizations can leverage these tools to craft effective strategies, achieve the SMART objectives we've discussed and sustain thereby long-term growth, which at the end of the day is what every business is interested in and should be the cornerstone of any work done by marketing. With that in mind, let's jump right into understanding business processes, and we'll understand the models which help us make sense of how we can put the indicators of success in a format that helps us identify their correlations. So let's understand the business process to begin with. In this, we see that we are going to bring in the concepts of business processes, things that we can do from start to end and ensure that we repeat the entire process successfully, giving the desired outcome or output. Here, the sequence of steps involving input, which in this case could be information, which could be materials, the process through which manufacturing or in the case of services some analysis happens, and finally the output in the form of a finished product, a consumer durable, a fast moving consumer good or some sort of systems or some sort of services which come out as the final end product is where the output finally lands. The goal in this case for the organization is that at every stage you are adding value. Why are you adding value? So that the customer who is going to end up paying for that particular product or service finds it worth their while. And when you do so, you ensure that the premium that you are going to charge, which is obviously going to be over and above the cost of goods sold, you will actually accrue profit to the organization. It is important because it is essential for strategic planning to keep these processes in mind so that we are able to repeatedly create that value and ensure that the amount of profit and the margin of profit is not disturbed, it is not broken, it is an unbroken chain that keeps going on till the organization exists. The outcome of this entire exercise is to generate that particular profit as the result of whatever value has been added to the entire process. Now, in here, let us look at Michael Porter's value chain model, or as we call it in short, the VCA model. Here, we understand that this is a framework to analyze what kind of business activities are entered into by the organization. In terms of primary activities, you can find inbound logistics, which is where all the materials that get supplied to the organization are looked at. In the case of a product marketing organization, these could be materials that are used to make finished products. In the case of service organizations, this could be data points and inputs from the field. Here you have operations which then take up that particular input commodity, whether it be the materials that we are using to create finished products, or in the case of services, the data which is then used as an input commodity, and it is researched, it is analyzed, and then an answer is arrived at. In terms of operations, what happens typically is you pass it through the necessary build-up processes. When you are building a particular candy, for example, you will require certain flavors, you will require certain sugar, you will require certain mixers, preservatives and such like. Once you have received these through the inbound logistics, you will put them through the operations where you will actually define what proportion are they mixed in. Then there is the entire process of mixing them in and finally coming up with the end product, the candy itself. The candy is then packaged and stamped, and finally it is ready to leave the premises, where outbound logistics come into play. At the end of the factory is the factory gate. Once the product goes out, outbound logistics takes it up and ensures that it reaches the supply and distribution channel. Marketing and sales have each their own function. Sales ensures that there is a certain amount of offtake of that particular product in the market by consumers, whereas marketing ensures that the consumers are aware of that particular product, its pricing, its benefits, how it is differentiated from other competitors in the market, and therefore they prefer it. They remember it and they want it by name and brand. Services exist to ensure larger commodities like consumer durables, automotives, etc. are looked after even after the sale has happened. These are also revenue spinners for the organization and hence equally important in terms of building value. If you've got a car, that car needs to be serviced over time. So there are certain consumables which get used up, and obviously you end up paying for those. That is also where the organization makes money. There are supporting activities in this entire format. There is infrastructure. The organization houses its particular product making facility inside of a factory building, and that factory building will house certain facilities for the people working inside, certain machinery which will help create the particular product, and certain personnel who can supervise the entire process. Human resources take up that particular aspect. where they appraise the right kind of person for that particular task or job, give them the right amount of pay and benefits, and then extract the maximum output and productivity out of their day's work. Technology comes in to help the entire process become smoother, faster and more accurate, and it is always in a constant state of development, and procurement is a department which looks after the influx of material, so that it comes in from the best providers, the service providers, the suppliers, the vendors, etc. And when you are procuring these, you are able to garner the best discounted rates, and you are therefore able to bring your production margins downward, increasing the profit that you are able to generate out of that entire exercise. The purpose in this case for the organization is to identify areas where you can add value and improve profit margins, and therefore, this gives us the Porter's model and its components. In terms of inbound logistics, let us look at examples: handling of raw materials and components, efficient inventory management, so that you do not waste space, you do not have, because space comes at a premium, you have to pay prices for keeping certain space where you can stock your goods, whether they are the materials that are input into your entire process or the output which is in form of stock keeping units, which are the finished product at various sizes and various price points. Again, supplier relationships come in very, very handy here, because at the end of the day, you have got a credit cycle to run. You have to ensure that you get the best produce from the market, so that you are able to actually utilize and add value at each stage, including the components that get consumed by your production process. In terms of operations, you have got a manufacturing process which is the main heart of the entire operation. You have got quality control, because you need to ensure that nothing slipshod goes out of the organization and into the hands of the consumer. And you also have to ensure that whatever setup you have created, there is always a constant efficient workflow in that particular organization's process. When you come to outbound logistics, you have to then take them from your factory and help get them to the channel where distribution of the finished goods happens in the market at large. You again have to get into inventory and warehouse management if you are creating a ready stockpile of whatever product you are coming up with. And you have to ensure that this works with logistics to ensure delivery optimization. Why optimization? So that you are able to keep the necessary amount of stockpile, and also at the same point in time you are able to minimize inventory costs. So, both things taken together form part of what your supply chain management or your logistics team does as well. Beyond this, marketing and sales kick in, where marketing analysis and strategy tells you where particular audiences are who are likely to buy your product, in what stage of the marketing funnel are they, whether they are outliers, whether they are aware of your particular product, whether they are interested, whether they are desirous, and whether they are taking action. And then you have got sales processes to ensure that sales happen. It closes the transaction where money is revenue in revenue form is received and the goods are sold. This happens through the various channels through which your distribution is aligned. And customer relationship management ensures that post sales any grievances are addressed. Other services include after sales support. We have discussed the automotive version of this. Customer service which ensures that this entire transaction is smooth, and warranty and repair services for certain parts, especially in high end durables. These could be home appliances, these could be phones, electronics, etc., and these could also be automotive. In general, it broadly falls into these categories, but there may be others which does not make this list currently exhaustive. Now, beyond this, there are supporting activities in the entire value chain which help ensure that the firm is providing whatever is required for the organization to be able to fulfill its job. There is the firm's infrastructure, where you have an organizational structure. So, you begin with top management, then a middle layer of management, each with specific tasks and key result areas or KRAs. These are then delegated to middle management, which is typically your managerial staff, and beneath them they have teams which each provide this particular segment of the tasks aligned or allotted to them, so they can manage the entire workflow. Then you have got financial management. One of these key departments is finance. Finance ensures that there is optimum cash flow, profits, tax compliance, etc., so that the company does not fall afoul of the law of the land, and they are also able to manage their money. Then there is corporate governance, which typically is run from the top level, which is your business leadership team, and then it percolates downwards in terms of policies, frameworks, accepted norms. It also is in the form of the vision and mission statements that becomes basically the centerpiece of what the organization believes to be its purpose and therefore follows. Human resources takes care of the personnel management of the entire scenario, where you have got recruitment and training for personnel, then you have got performance management, which is appraisals, and you have got employee engagement, which keeps the morale up for people working in the organization. Again, then there is the technology department, where there is research and development, which leads to new product development. You have got technological advancements, which give you a better ITES based infrastructure. And then there are innovation initiatives, which are typically run in the form of projects, because they are being done for the first time around. Once you have success in a project, you take an assessment for feasibility, once it is found to pass muster here, then you turn this into a process, because now you know exactly what needs to be done, the steps to which, the kind of people required, the kind of money is involved, and finally you get to replicate this entire thing over and over again, because this becomes part of your mainstay. Procurement does the sourcing and purchasing, evaluates and keeps suppliers on call, and ensures they are providing the best items for the lowest cost. So, in all, these are the supporting activities also which help build the value chain for the organization. Now, in terms of activities which people get into inside an organization, you can start by identifying the activities. What you can do is list all the processes that you have within the organization, and you can use brainstorming sessions. What are brainstorming sessions? Obviously, these are where ideas are exchanged. And then there is a flowchart creation for visualization. This is typically done for processes. So, if any personnel is unavailable, has left the job, or is under training, or is unavailable in a general sense, then there should be enough information for somebody else to walk into that situation and pick up the strings from where they found them and carry on with that particular activity. So, this is basically continuity also. Now, when you detail each activity, what you are doing is you break them down into specific tasks, which helps you increase your workflow efficiency, because you are constantly analyzing which particular tasks take up the maximum amount of time, and you try to reduce that particular time spent on the task. You also in the meanwhile identify any specific bottlenecks that have occurred or are in the process of occurring, and you should be wary of. Beyond this, you have redundancies. Redundancies are important, and at times they are superfluous as well. Redundancies are important because you need to have a backup for exigencies, but at the same point in time it is also a cost burden. So, hence it has to be minimalized. So, in terms of the value being added at each stage, how is the value being added? When you analyze each activity and you find out where the potential for adding value lies, you take first and foremost the viewpoint of the customer and you try and figure out what will make a difference in the life of a customer. This is typically a marketer's job because they are the closest when it comes to understanding the life and goings on in the lives of customers. You can have enhancing repair services under warranty as an action, but this comes from customer feedback. Yes, there will be a customer support department which takes into consideration the feedback coming, and they are tasked with picking up customer feedback as their main process. But the analysis and the inference driving from such customer feedback, that typically lies squarely with marketing, because they are tracking at what particular point the customer journey is. They are also looking at customer expectations so that they are able to respond quickly and they ensure that there is a reliable response coming from the organization, so that the customer feels that their needs and their requirements are met adequately. The staff has to be courteous and handle the situation very, very professionally, and they need to have clear communication of how soon the problem which the customer is facing will be resolved. When you are streamlining the processes, you can add operational improvements and thereby increase the efficiency. Other measures which can help improve that particular aspect is by investing in technology which enhances that particular service delivery. There are various feedback mechanisms which are also put into place, so that you are continually gathering customer feedback and you are ensuring that there is a process of continuous improvement which is working at the back end. As the improvements are being brought in, you implement changes based on the feedback that is received from the customer's end. In the entire process of evaluating where value can be added in the organization, you are continuously assessing changes and you evaluate the impact of any proposed changes. This is done through simulations and planning of scenarios. At the same point in time, taking too much on is also a consideration which the organization has to consider, and therefore cost benefit analysis. This gives a financial trade-off. Which the organization must also understand. This has a direct impact on the profitability, because the more you spend trying to fix a problem, the more you are reducing the actual value created, and you are also creating nuisance value for the customer. Whereas, if you have actually figured out where the problem lies and you have actually worked towards changing it right at the get-go, the iterative changes which are there can be managed better. You prioritize your high impact activities which are going to keep the customer happy and satisfied. Strategic planning comes in very helpfully here and helps set clear actionable goals which over time are achieved, and you can see the progress made over here. This also helps you create a roadmap for implementation of steps which form part of the larger process, and you can actually allocate your resources very efficiently. Now, when you are monitoring the progress, you look at key performance indicators which are KPIs, and you can also call them KRAs, which are key result areas. Both are accepted terminologies in the business space. You regularly review your progress against the goals that you have set for the organization's personnel, and you are continuously on a path to improve whatever processes you have. The iterative process of evaluation and refinement is something that is also built in as part of the process. So, if you have a start point where there is a product being created, from there is a sale point, from where there is a customer feedback which comes back in the loop to the origin of the source, which is the organization. Here you go into the evaluation space and ensure whatever has gone wrong can be fixed. You analyze the cost part of it, and therefore you devise a plan to then go back and provide the refurbished goods, or you look at providing the warranties, whichever the case might be, to keep your customer satiated and happy. When you involve other stakeholders, you are engaging people like your employees, the managers, all together in the planning process. You are hearing their feedback as well, which ensures that you are able to take on their considerations, their challenges, and figure out problem solutions all at the same time. And you ensure that this entire process is aligned with the overall business strategy as such. When you are looking at business processes, you take typically a comprehensive view of your organizational activities, and you identify the strengths and weaknesses. These are part of your SWOT analysis, which we have discussed previously. and you try and create a competitive advantage. Here you enhance the customer value, and very importantly you differentiate from competitors. How do you differentiate? You can differentiate by absolutes. So, these could be unique features, unique capabilities, or even unique offerings, and these could also be by comparison. So, here it could be quality or degree of measure. Some or the other way you are trying to keep yourself separate and better than what your competition is doing, thereby attracting more customers your way. The more customers who come to you, you are able to drive more sales and increase your profit margins, because efficient operations lead to cost savings, and whatever value you have added in the process translates to the increase in profitability. Now, in terms of the entire aspect of VCA coming into your favor, it helps drive strategic decision making for you, where you take data as the input for every stage you are at, and with that data you take an approach towards strategic formulation, and you align your activities with the business objectives, and continuously you are able to grow the organization, because you know what your long term objectives are, what your focus is, and you continuously improve, course correct towards achieving that particular end goal. And you are also looking out for market changes and opportunities which you can quickly encash. So, all of these things together give you the benefit from the VCA model. And because you are trying to set up objectives which are at the end of the day realistic, you have to ensure that how you define those particular objectives are also very clear in people's minds. So, the first thing you do is make it very specific. The goals you create are clear and precise goals. For example, I have to increase profit, but by how much? So, profit margins have to go up by 10%. In what particular period of time? Next fiscal year. So, this gives you a particular defined goal to then pursue. It has to be measurable. So, there should be certain metrics and criteria for tracking whether you are on task, whether you are on point or not in that particular process. So, example here is monthly revenue targets. You take the profits and then you plot it back to the kind of sales that you need, because you understand the differential between cost of goods sold and the final selling price. The profit is the differential. So, therefore, you have got revenue targets in terms of absolute sales, which will give you that kind of profits every month. Once you are able to hit those particular revenue targets, you are ensuring that the profit margins are also going up in that particular ratio. Again, they need to be achievable. So, they have to be realistic, and the expectations are based on current resources and capabilities. The expansion which you are seeking into a new regional market with existing infrastructure is something which should be achievable, at least that is the perspective of the management. So, these things have to be sat down and discussed with management, so that the key stakeholders in the entire process are aware of what changes are going to happen and who are the people responsible with the KPIs or KRAs to finally showcase that the task has been accomplished. Now, we have taken SWOT as a basic example, as a basic format to understand how the entire organizational situational awareness can be taken up. You can modify the SWOT format as well a bit more, and you can adjust your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. How do you do so? By investing, you can enhance your strengths, for example, and you can reduce weakness. Where do you invest? You invest in technology, personnel, infrastructure, in various spaces where you might find a weakness to be existing. Similarly, there could be strategic interventions. So, for example, if you make proactive changes to the SWOT profile, you can see that by the technological investment, you overcome certain operational weaknesses, and that helps you reduce the weakness aspect in your SWOT profile. Similarly, you put out certain ambitious objectives. Here, you set higher goals in that modified SWOT scenario and expand the market share through strategic partnerships instead of just doing it by your own self. So, this could become an ambition which you may try to look at partners for, and then with the joining of hands you may actually be able to achieve. Then how do you achieve the SMART objectives? You align your ambitious goals with your strategic interventions. You are deciding to take up certain tasks so that your ambitious goals are visibly met. So, you continuously reassess what your current status is, are you on track for things, and you keep making the adjustments so that with the interventions you have planned and implemented, you are able to take that particular organizational course. The strategic implications and applications of the entire set of models that we have discussed so far. First and foremost, it helps you formulate strategy. It helps you develop a clear action plan. You have got steps to follow, people who are going to be part of those steps, and certain measurable metrics which will give you where you are, where you need to be, and how you are going to walk step by step from point A to point B. Second thing is, you have to align your strategy with the business objectives. What is it that you wish to achieve in that particular tenure? Are you achieving certain extra market share? Are you expanding into new geographies? Are you introducing new products? What is it that your specific business objective speaks of? And so, therefore, you can align your strategy to achieve those particular objectives. Again, problems will be always in front of you. You have to come up with creative solutions, and this involves approaches which will help you in achieving these goals. For example, if you are finding it difficult to operate in a traditional format, you increase the kind of footfalls at your doorstep by increasing online footfalls. So, you can use digital marketing for the same and actually acquire customers even before they have come and visited you. So, this is one way of creating a solution which was not existing before. Also, continuously strategists in the marketing team will have to analyze how competition is doing. So, you have to look at competitor strategies, you have to analyze what their campaigns are, what their thought process is, how are they saying whatever they are to their end consumers, and how you can actually do better than what has been done by your competition. So, that you also differentiate your approach. You do not say the exact same thing that they have, because if they have already said something, then they may already have garnered a certain mind space within the consumer. Again, in terms of resource allocations, you are going to be able to use all your available resources more efficiently if you know exactly where to place what. You prioritize your high impact initiatives which are again driven by your strategic objectives. So, you prioritize amongst these what is it that you must do, what are good to do, and what you can do also without. Then you have to continually monitor and adjust and track for the strategy getting implemented on the ground level. You adapt to new changes and new opportunities that are always constantly showing up on the radar. And you craft your entire mix for marketing which is aligned to your strategy. Here you use customer insights to guide your strategy. What is it that really works with the customer so that you can create a differentiated narrative in front of them, and you also can tailor your products to meet specific customer needs if there are any. And then when you are looking at the larger universe of customers, you can choose to actually address a certain portion of that particular audience and that particular target market segment is where you will have a specific kind of communication. With that particular audience, you will be able to resonate better because of those things, and so therefore, that will help you develop strategies for each of these segments. So, you can actually divide the entire market into a variety of segments, and you can look at how you want to address each segment separately. Now, in terms of your marketing mix, you look at a variety of items which are going to help you drive your strategy. So, you look at product, what kind of product is it? Are you creating any variants within it? Are there any SKUs which differ in packaging size and therefore price? Price automatically comes in next. You're tagging it with whatever your cost of goods sold is. What is the kind of premium that you're able to drive with the consumer, and what other competitive scenarios are playing havoc with your pricing game. The place, which means where you going to place your particular items, and then finally your promotion. In what way are you going to promote your particular product? These four together are the 4 P's of marketing. We will discuss these in detail going further. And therefore, you customize the marketing mix for different segments, because each segment may have different product aspirations, different price considerations, different places where they visit. So, therefore, you must as well, and different ways to engage. So, therefore, promotion strategies may also differ. This is what the customer centric approach really starts to talk about. Focusing on customer needs and preferences, you are able to derive the marketing mix for each particular customer segment. And because you have thought of them, because you are available for them exactly when and where they need you, you may be able to curate long-term customer relationships. Success factors would be the key elements of a successfully aligned market strategy. Now, why is this entire aspect so challenging? Is because at times you have to create alternatives. You have to think out of the box. You have to look at something which probably isn't in existence right now, but when you create it, at that very point in time, you create a product and offering which is very, very different from what has existed so far, which is where you can innovate and create strategic options for your customer. You can create new product lines, you can create new services which can actually push up the likability of any particular product. And when consumers are evaluating their options, you assess the feasibility and impact of what all you have placed in front of them, and you help them prioritize what the best alternative is amongst all that is available in their purview. You also continuously keep looking at what your competition is doing. So, hence competitor analysis helps you understand their strengths and weaknesses and helps you differentiate your strategy. So, you stand apart and don't become a me too of their marketing and communication strategy. You may also face certain resource constraints. So, you have to work within your budget and the resource limits, which is why the creative thinking aspect is also equally important here, so that you can allocate your resources effectively. When it comes to implementation challenges, this is also going to help you overcome all the obstacles in the execution of whatever strategy you have come up with. You have to find attractive segments so that you are able to appeal to them better. So, identify which particular segments of the market are filled with customers who want that exact product and are ready to favor you as a brand. Here again we have discussed market research is there to help you. It helps identify the potential segments you can address, and within that you can have various features which can help pinpoint them. So, you can have the demographic features, you can have where they are placed in geography and what they think of in terms of the psychographic. So, with a combination of these things you are able to create a segment within the audience. So, in terms of segment attractiveness, you have to obviously look at the various segments that continuously exist at the same point in time, and you have to look at what are the criteria which help you qualify amongst these segments which has the most potential for your organization and brand. Here you can look at market size, growth potential within the entire market, and what level of competition is there. A very interesting concept here is the red versus blue ocean concept. typically brands vie to move from a red to a blue ocean. Why is this important? What is a red ocean? What is a blue ocean? A red ocean is a place which is congested, has a lot of competition, and there is almost a continuous fight for market share, whereas a blue ocean is relatively free of competition, and you can exist because it is your differentiation which has brought you there. So, a differentiation path is what takes you from a red to a blue ocean scenario, and the more you are able to differentiate yourself, you will find that if you are able to do it for a lucrative segment, you will get two things. One, you will get brand loyalty, and since you will be one of the few players only, if not the only one, then you will get value coming from that particular exercise as well when you move from red to blue ocean. So, that also helps increase the profitability and keeps the market attractiveness going forward. So, when you are evaluating attractiveness for the market, there are certain criteria for actually doing that. You look at market growth. So, whether the entire category is growing and what kind of customer demand is there within that particular category. So, that you are able to assess how well will you be able to increase your share and your value within that particular segment. Also, when you are balancing profitability, you have to ensure that it balances alongside the attractiveness aspect. So, you need to showcase that there is high growth, but low profitability segments. So, these can be also looked at very, very carefully. When you look at BCG's matrix is built in 4 quarters. So, if this is growth and this is profitability, this is growing in this way and this way. So, there if you have got low growth and low profitability, there that segment is generally called the dogs. This is the kind of space which organizations would prefer to avoid. If there is high growth and low profitability, so these are typically called question marks, because if there is less profitability, but you can see growth, it may give you something, but you are not entirely sure. If there is high growth and high profitability, then you will look at something called stars. There is high risk but high gain, and then if there is low growth but high profitability, then you can look at cash cows. Because here what you can do is you can continually keep little pushes going on in the market, and you can keep gaining the benefits out of that scenario. So, this is the BCG matrix which you can work with as well and try and plot where you want to keep your products. This dogs part is something which is best avoided. Market attractiveness and profitability wise, you also look at your competition, how entrenched they are, and you are trying to enter new markets with less competition, which is where the red ocean, blue ocean aspect comes in. And if you are taking that particular strategic decision, it should align with your overarching organizational strategic goals. And you have to balance both short term benefits with long term profitability, because let us say entering into a new space will require some amount of realignment, which may have a certain amount of cost bearing upon you as an organization. If you take that cost on and reduce your short term profitability, but you entrench yourself in that blue ocean scenario, then in the long term you will be able to generate more value, because you will be one of the few players there and you will already have made the first mover advantage, which is why people will, when they look at that particular space, be able to align it with you, because you are the first mover there, you have outshouted competition if there is any, and you are able to provide better than the other people who will try and get into that. So, that is where your long term profitability will really come from, and that will help you get successful segment evaluation going for you. Now, let us look at applying these models in targeting, because that is where this finally ends up and showcases the kind of activity which will foster some sort of aim and some sort of interaction with the end consumer as a final resultant of the entire activity. So, when you are looking at targeting strategies, you are looking at different strategies, whether you are looking at a single segment which you are going to focus heavily on. If you are going to do a product specialization and become somebody who is known for that one particular type or series of products, then if there is a market specialization where you become the thought leader of that particular segment, then there is selective specialization. So, within that particular vertical, if there is one particular aspect that you are going to be the best in that particular segment for, and then finally, there is full market coverage where you are completely routing all sorts of other competition. So, you have to make the targeting strategy accordingly depending on the kind of scenarios played out by, let us say, a SWOT analysis. To your help, you can also use the BCG matrix here and plan your product mix. Why is it important to choose the right strategy? Because there are lots of criteria which you will need to select when you are coming up with the right kind of strategy. So, these criteria could come from the market size you are trying to cover, the amount of competition, the number of players, how well entrenched are they, are you able to with your resources take the fight to them. There are a lot of conversations around resource availability as well. So, all of these factors together you have to keep in consideration when you are looking at targeting a certain specific segment. So, with all these things in mind, you have to plan your specific marketing strategy. Again, if you are somebody who has that particular capability to create specific value which serves as a differentiator, then you may be in a spot to disrupt that particular market segment. If you are able to do that with differentiation, then again it starts making viability and sense for you to actually disrupt the market and create a toehold for yourself. So, with all these things, you have also got to see how well your team is aligned to implement whatever strategies you have come up with. So, which means in terms of, let us say, marketing, you will have to see what kind of campaigns you can use. So, you can give a differentiated proposition, and any amount of good marketing will require great products to back it up. So, hence your product development also has to take into consideration how well it can match up to the aspirations of the consumer. The consumer feedback is important. We have always spoken of a consumer centric model. So, consumer feedback will drive what kind of campaigns you are running as well as what kind of products you are developing. And while you are doing this entire process, you are continuously evaluating the process for your success. So, you will put in the necessary metrics for measuring whether your strategy has succeeded or not. Certain very plain and easy to spot metrics would be in the form of either market share or sales growth, which will be clear indicators of your successes. Other than this, when you adapt the strategies because of certain scenario changes in the market, you will be taking that feedback and you will continuously improve a variety of facets, so that you are able to actually hit the right chords and ensure you keep moving onward and upward with these metrics, the market share, the sales growth, the brand visibility. Then you can have consumer recall and a variety of other metrics which you can measure your success by. So, all of these, you can also look at revenue, you can look at profitability, depends on what particular metric is part of your strategic objectives. With all this in mind, we come to an end of this conversation. And when you look at business processes, you will see that Michael Porter's value chain model, it's highlighting how important it is to add value strategically at every step. You have to carefully analyze the primary activities that you are getting into. So, you have to look at your logistics, you've got to look at your operations, the marketing that you are doing, and what levels of customer service are you able to provide, along with all the other supporting activities which are going to ensure that these things keep happening, like your human resources and what technology you are developing, deploying, and making it work. Businesses which use all of these things, they can pinpoint which particular areas they need to improve upon. And with the process of activity analysis, value analysis, and evaluation, you can, as a company, you can enhance your competitive edge and increase the margin. Therefore, you are able to boost your profits. When you set SMART objectives, you are also adapting the SWOT analysis format, and you are ready to match with the changing circumstances. I keep coming back to the aspect of changing circumstances because you have to remember the VUCA aspects that are constantly shifting market forces around you. So, hence you have to be ready for these and ensure that strategies that you put into place are effective and market aligned. And when you understand and use different targeting strategies, whether you are focusing on a single segment, specializing in products, targeting specific markets, or covering the entire market, it is entirely your choice and depends on the resources you have, depends on your differentiation, depends on the skill set, your particular team and what their capabilities are, your historical trends, etc. You will be able to enable your business to meet your customer needs better and drive the success that you are putting out in your objectives. So, this comprehensive approach will encourage continuous improvement and help you sustain your growth upwards. So, with that we come to an end of today's conversation, and in the further segments we will be covering effective business marketing programs. So, that will be where we will take the conversation next. Until that time, thank you for being a lovely audience. I will see you next time.
Understanding oneself, understanding others, understanding society at large, understanding the nature, these are all driven by basic human curiosity. We would all love to understand why things happen, what happens, what is the final outcome, why certain things fail. These are all exercises that we perform in various domains of knowledge. Therefore, knowledge in various domains, you would realize they are actually social artifacts. They have to be rooted into historical perspective, they have to be culturally salient, and there would be socio-political reasons behind this. Whether you talk with respect to engineering sciences, whether you talk with respect to physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, that is the reason why humanities and social sciences should be understood by all of us. The knowledge that is segregated, that is divided with respect to areas, specializations, all of them needs to be understood in its context. And what provides the context? It is the social reality. How do you correlate knowledge in a given domain with the cultural reality, with the social reality, with the socio-political compulsions? Okay, how do you understand the law of nature, okay, in its totality? and for doing that you require the understanding of humanities and social sciences. Say for instance, if you are trying to understand the effect of a particular bacteria, a virus, any microbe, how it affects behavior, how it affects the organism, human being, you start looking at it from a pure biological point of view. If you are trying to look at a particular type of a wavelength, say for example, you are emphasizing on the understanding of the effect of radiation on human life, you are looking at things from a physical point of view. You are looking at the corresponding changes inside the body, you are looking at the physiological side of the understanding of the information. You are trying to understand why, despite knowing the risk that is inbuilt in the process, why still human beings engage into it. You are looking at it from a pure behavioral point of view. Why society at large admire things which has full of risk. You are trying to understand things from a pure sociological point of view. Why people use particular set of words to explain those experiences. You are trying to understand things from the linguistic point of view. So, there are a whole lot of things, and then finally you try to combine all of them to say that what are the guiding principles in life. Then you say you are looking at life, you are looking at humanity from a pure philosophical point of view, and this is what social sciences courses provide you. They provide the context to you in which you would be finally positioning the understanding of the knowledge in any given domain. It could be engineering, it could be sciences, it could be medical sciences, it could be social sciences stuff, it could be humanities stuff. So, contextualizing the knowledge is what humanities social science courses help you obtain.